Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you all are doing well. I am with you MD Shajadur Ahmed and I am welcoming you all to a new tutorial of Python programming. Today we are going to discuss about the control statements in Python programming. So we are already familiar with control statements such as if, else, for, while, and we have already executed this control statement in previous programming like C, C++, Java, but today we are going to precisely see how actually this control statement executed in Python. So let us begin. Okay, so control statement. Usually statement in a program executed in the order in which they are written. So in which way we actually write our code is actually executed, and that is actually called a statement. This is called sequence execution. Various Python statements enable you to specify that the next statement to execute may be other than the previous one in sequence. So it can happen that depending on the condition, the next sequence or next execution may varies upon the previous execution. This is called transfer of control and is achieved with Python control statement. So let us start discussing Python statement. Okay, so before we move on to Python statement, let us get familiar with the keywords available in Python, because as we all know that keyword cannot be declared as a variable. When we declare a keyword as a variable in any language, we can have a syntax error. So that's why we have to know the list of keywords, although it is very difficult to remember all those keywords at the same time. But let us see a table. So the words if, else if, so in Python else if is written like ELIF. Else, while, for, true and false are keywords that Python reserve to implement its feature, such as control statements. So using a keyword as a variable name is a syntax error. So you cannot use a keyword as a variable name. The following table shows the list of Python keywords. So as you can see, there are like as, and, then continue, true, return, try, while, and so on. So there are some very common keywords, so we need to know the common keywords as well. So let us move now. So first of all, we are going to discuss about the if statement. So suppose that a passing grade on an examination is 60. So let us consider that the passing grade is 60. Then the pseudocode will be shown as following. So you can see the flowchart of if statement. If it is true, then will be executed the true statement, otherwise it will display nothing. So if student grade is greater than or equal to 60, display passed. So as you can see, here we are actually writing Python code. So first of all, we are assigning that grade equal to 85, and then we are actually checking that if grade is greater than or equal to 60. If it is true, then print passed, or if it is false, do nothing, because in if statement we know that it will only execute a true statement, nothing else. If we want to execute also the false statement, then we need to move on to if else, as we all know. So the if else statement perform different suits based on whether the condition is true or false. The pseudocode below display pass if the student grade is greater than or equal to 60, otherwise it display fail. So let us see, it will proceed in this manner. First of all, we are assigning a grade like 85, and then we are checking that the grade is greater than or equal to 60 or not. If it is greater than 60, then it will print passed, or if it is less than 60, then it will print fail. So as you can see, this is the flow chart of if else. It will if it is true, it will execute the true statement. If it is false, then it will execute the false statement. So in either way, it will at least execute one statement. Okay, so now let's move on to if else. So when there are many conditions, and depending on the condition there are many statements, then we can use if else. So Python also support if else. So just we need to write down in this sequence that you can test the many case using the if else statement. The following pseudocode displayed: A for grade greater than or equal to 90, B for grades in the range of 80 to 89, C for grades in the range of 70 to 79, D for the grades to 60 to 69, and F for all other grades. So you can see the pseudocode, and let us move on to Colab and then practice this code. So we are now in Colab, and we have already write down the code. As you can see, it is not exactly as we have seen in the pseudocode, but we are actually trying to implement the concept and actually trying to use if else. So you can see if it is greater than or equal to 80, then A. If it is greater than or equal to 70, then print B. If it is greater than or equal to 60, then print C, otherwise print fail. So let us run this code. So as we can see, when we run the code, it is actually asking a grade. So let us give a grade like 85. So if it is 85, then you can see it is A. Let's run it again. Let's give it 71. So if it is 71, it should be B, as you can see. And now let's give a grade which is less than 60. Let's say 59. So if we say it is 59, it will be fail. So that's how we actually execute if else. So now let's go back to the slide. Okay, so in our slide also it has been already written, and also you can see the flow chart of this if else statement. So we have already seen that, so we can move forward. Now we are in while statement. So the while statement allow you to repeat one or more action while a condition remain true. Such a statement often is called a loop. So actually for and while statement is actually used as loop, we all know that. So the iteration process is actually executed by for and while loop. The following pseudocode specifies that what happens when you go shopping. So while there are more items on your shopping list, buy next item and cross it off your list. So that's how while statement actually works. So when it is done, it can be removed, and until all the items from the shopping list will be crossed, it will be repeated over and over again. So here we are actually trying to execute a code using while statement. So let use a while statement to find the power of 3 larger than 50. So we are actually trying to find out the power of 3 until it become larger 50. So that's why first of all we push the value of product, which is a variable, to 3, and then we are comparing with the while statement. While product is less than or equal to 50, it will keep repeating and find out the product of 3, and when it is greater than or equal to 50, then it will stop. So as you can see, the first power of 3, that is exceed 50, greater than 50, is 81. So that's how it's actually works. So let's move on to next one. So just like while statement, for statement is also allow you to repeat a action or several action. There is statement perform in actions for each time in a sequence item. For example, a string is a sequence of individual characters. As we know that a string is actually treated as a individual character, although we know as a string, but there is nothing but there are a sequence of characters. Let's display programming with its character separated by 2 space. So we are actually first of all put the value, take the value as a string and as a programming, and then we are actually trying to print the value. So in that case we can use the variable name and then separated by comma and this keyword, in keyword. So in equal to, then in between the quotation we put 2 space, so that we can print the output by providing 2 space between all the characters. So as we can see that when we do that, we can have the output of programming with 2 space between all the characters. So that's how actually for statement works. Also you can see the flowchart of this program. So for statement is actually very easier to use. All the statement is actually easy to use in all language, but it is very easy to use in Python language. As you can see that it is actually very much easier. So let's move forward. So now we are going to discuss about iterables or list of iterators. That means there will be a list, and from that list it will be repeated, the same process will be repeated over and over again until the list will be finished. So the sequence to the right of the for statement is keyword must be an iterable. An iterable is an object from which the statement can be taken one item at a time until no more item remains. So it will take one item at a time and it will keep repeating until all the items from the list will be finished. Python has other iterable sequence types besides string. One of the most common is a list. So list is also a iterable process that works with the for or while statement, which is a comma separated collection of items enclosed in square brackets. The following code totals 5 integer in a list. So now we are actually trying to use list keywords with for the iteration process. So we are actually trying to give a total of 5 numbers which is actually provided in a list and separated by comma. So as you can see, we are actually using a variable to put all the summation of those value. So that's why we are actually initializing it. So the reason of initializing it the total is to making it integer. So that's why we are actually assigning 0. And then for number in, so we are using for statement and the number in, and then after they enclose the item with square brackets. So you can see there are 5 items enclosed and separated by comma, and now we are actually trying to add all those items. So because we are using for, so it will keep repeating. First of all, it will add 2 with 3, and then it will add 0 with the result, and then it will add 17 with the result, and then it will add 9 with the result. And that's how actually the whole list of item will be added, and the summation of all those items will be accumulated in total, and that's how actually we provide the summation of a list. So see, it becomes very easier to do a coding using a list. Like it works as an array. We have used array in high level language and low level language as well. So it's just used as an array, but we don't have to use any indexing to access the data. So it is actually very easy to use. So let's move forward. So now built-in range function. So let's use the for statement and the built-in range function. So now we are actually going to use the range function. So there are another interesting function that is actually available in Python, and we are actually going to use it in a broad varieties. So to iterate precisely 10 items. So in this case, in this code, we are actually trying to iterate 10 items, display the value from 0 to 9. So we are actually going to display 10 items, and it is starting from 0 to 9. So it works just like this. First of all, the for statement and a variable name, and then then the range function. So in the range, inside the braces, we need to mention that what are the range. So if we say 10, then it will be counted as 0 to 9. If we said 11, then it will count from 0 to 10. Also, we can mention the lower bound and upper bound as well. So we will see the example later. So just first of all, we need to say the variable name, and then in equal to, then separate the single quotation. So separated by one space. So you can see now it is actually giving the output of 0 to 9 separated by one space. That's how range function works. There are some other varieties of use of range. So let's see another use of range function. So in that particular time, we are actually trying to display from 0 to 9, but now in that case we are actually trying to add all those items from 0 to 9. So we can simply does that. First of all, from till here there is no difference, but here we are actually saying that total equal to total plus number. That means each of the number, first of all 0 and 1 will be added, and then the summation will be added with 2, and so on. Then total will accumulate all the summation of all those numbers till 0 from 0 to 9 and then give us the output. So the output should be 45. So let's see another example of range. So built-in function range, a deeper loop. So we are going to deep down of range. So the range function also has 2 and 3 argument version, as we said that the lower range and the upper range. Also there are 3 range version. In that particular case we say the upper range, the lower range, and the increment or decrement process. As we have seen, range 1 argument version produce a sequence of a consecutive integer from 0 to up to something, but not including the argument value. But function range 2 argument version produce a sequence of consecutive integers from its first argument up to but not including the second argument. So as it means that in this range function, as we have mentioned, that 5 to 10, that means it will start displaying from 5 till 9. It will not going to include the second argument. That's what actually it is saying, that it is not going to include the second argument. So as we can see, the output is from 5 to 9. So if you actually want to display 10, then you need to produce your range from 5 to 11, then it will display 10. Now let us see 3 range arguments. So range 3 argument version produce a sequence of integer from its first argument value up to but not including the second argument, exactly similar to the second 2 argument range, but the third one is actually the incrementing range. So incremented by the third argument. So in that particular case, what actually we are trying to say, that start counting from 0 till 9 and separate the counting by 2. That means starting from 0, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. So that's what actually the third argument works for. So as we can see, it is also can be called as a printing the even number from 0 to 8. So it works that way as well. So you can see that using for and using the range function, we can do a lot of things. So let us move forward. So another range function. So in this case, we are actually mentioning rather than incrementing, we are actually decrementing. So we are starting from 10, but as we said, that second argument will be not displayed. It will end at 2 and decrement by 2, because now it is decrementing, as we have mentioned that it is minus 2. So it start with 10, then 8, then 6, then 4, then 2. So we can print our values in reverse order as well, just we need to use it smartly. You see, now we are actually using range to sum the all even integer from 2 to 100. So what we have to do, because we have to also include 100, that's why our second range is 101, because we know if we said it is 100, then 100 will be not included in the list. So that's why we started with 2 and the end with 101. That means before 101, 100, and the increment order is 2. And exactly we have done what we have done previously to get the total. So we have used a total variable, and then each and every time we add the number into total, and then we are actually producing the summation. So it is actually very easy. So we all actually already used argument assignment. So this is what actually called argument assignment. That means we all know it means total equal to total plus number. So that's what actually we have already used in our previous case, but now we are precisely mentioning that it is actually allowed. So we can do that by using this one, so that we can actually have to type less than the other thing actually. So I am not going to discuss it in a broader way, because we all know it, how it works, and we have already used it. So let's move forward and do some interesting things. Okay, so now we are in another keywords of Python. These are break and continue statements. So the break and continue statement, after a loop's flow of control, executing a break statement in a while or for immediately exit the statement. So we all know how it works. So suppose in this case you can see that in the following code, range produce the integer sequence 0 to 15. So it will produce 0 to 15. It is not 0 to 15 actually, 0 to 14, but the loop terminates when the number become 10. So because we have actually used break, so that's why it is actually terminated when the number become 10. So that you can see in previous case when we have used range and we have if we not use break and said that the range is 15, that it will display from 0 to 14. But in this case you can see it stops at 9. Why? Because we have used break. So whenever the number become 10, then it will break, and what happens, it will actually skip these following lines and actually go back to the exit line. So that's how break is actually works. If we want to skip some part whenever some pattern is followed, so that particular time we can use break. So let us see the use of continue. So executing a continue statement in a while or for loop, skip the remainder of the loop suite. So in a while, the condition is then tested to determine whether the loop should continue executing. In a for, the loop process in the next item in the sequence. So if we use for, then if we said that if number is equal to 5, then continue, that means it only skip 5, but it will print all the value from 0 to 9. So that's how actually continue works. So if we want to skip a particular value, that certain particular of time, we can actually use the continue statement. So in that case we have actually mentioned the range is 10, that means 0 to 9, but then we have said if number is 5, then continue. That means if number is 5, then do not print 5, but you can continue your process. That means skipping 5, you can print other value till 9. So that's what actually continue works for. You can see there all the outputs from 0 to 9, but there are no 5 because we have already mentioned in our code that just skip 5. So that's how actually continue works. So we will also have some statements and also have some program development to discuss, but we will discuss in our second part, because this tutorial is becoming very large. So that's why I have divided this tutorial into 2 different parts. So this is the end of first part. Hope to see you all in our second part. Till then everyone, stay safe, stay home. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.